U.S. to consider sanctions against Russia in connection with cyberattacks on Ukraine. U.S. senators proposed to add to the bill on sanctions against Russia the possibility of imposing restrictions for cyberattacks on Ukraine. It was reported on Wednesday, February 9, the newspaper Politico. According to the newspaper, sanctions for Russian cyberattacks are one of the issues under consideration, said Robert Menendez, chairman of the U.S. Senate Foreign Affairs Committee. In order to pass the bill, Democratic senators need the support of Republicans. However, they disagree with the bill's provision that sanctions can only be imposed if Russia invades Ukraine. The U.S. should activate these measures preventively, the Republicans believe. In January, Kyiv announced a hacker attack on the websites of its agencies and a number of other government agencies. The Security Service of Ukraine and the police opened a criminal case. The Ukrainian Ministry of Culture considered Moscow to be involved in the cyberattacks. On January 12, a group of Democratic senators in the USA introduced a draft law envisaging new sanctions against Russia in case the situation around Ukraine deteriorated. The senators promised to ban transactions with Russia's primary and secondary public debt. On January 25, the U.S. said that U.S. financial sanctions against Russia in case of an invasion of Ukraine would be tougher than in 2014, when the ruble depreciated by 50%. In addition, the White House warned about the preparation against Russia of restrictions on the supply of sophisticated technology in addition to financial restrictions. On January 31, White House spokeswoman Jen Psaki confirmed that the U.S. government had developed sanctions lists in case of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The U.S. National Security Council, NSC, specified that the new U.S. sanctions would be aimed at weakening Russia's industrial potential. On February 5, Russian ambassador to Washington Anatoly Antonov said that Russia expects the United States to impose new sanctions. On February 8, Deputy Foreign Minister Alexander Pankin stressed that adverse consequences for the West in case of harsh anti-Russian sanctions are imminent. The United States and a number of European countries have recently expressed concern about Russia's allegedly intensifying aggressive actions against Ukraine. Moscow has repeatedly denied such accusations, stressing that it does not threaten anyone. American composer John Appleton dies. American composer and educator John Appleton has died at age 84. This was announced on February 9 by his son, J.J. Appleton. He was a composer, very accomplished, but he was also a very accomplished professor and mentor to many people, J.J. was quoted as saying on Billboard's website. The composer died January 30 in White River Junction, Virginia, at age 83. The cause of death is unknown. John was born on January 4, 1939. He went to Dartmouth College in 1967. And in the late 1970s, he, along with Sidney Alonso and Cameron Jones, developed the Synclavier digital synthesizer, which became the Rolls-Royce of the music industry and sold for $75,000 to $500,000. It was used by singers such as Stingo, Stevie Wonder, and Frank. Appleton also taught at Keio University in Tokyo, Stanford University, and UCLA. He devoted the last years of his life to composing instrumental and choral music. U.S. Congress urged Biden to reconsider nuclear policy. Congressmen called on U.S. leader Joe Biden to focus his efforts on reducing the country's dependence on nuclear weapons and creating new nuclear systems. A group of congressmen addressed the president with a message to this effect ahead of the release of the new Nuclear Posture Review, RT reports. As the authors of the initiative note, Washington may spend a staggering amount by 2030 on the needs of the nuclear weapons complex, namely $630 billion. In this regard, the congressmen call on Biden to change the current course of U.S. nuclear policy. This is the best opportunity for you through decisive steps to reduce our dependence on nuclear weapons, strengthen arms control, and abandon the new nuclear weapons of war that Trump has unnecessarily ordered to be created. Gazeta.ru quotes the text of the February 10 letter. The authors of the document also believe that the American leader could help reduce the number of nuclear weapons not only in the United States, but also abroad. The updated nuclear posture review, as stressed by members of Congress, should support efforts to negotiate with Russia to enshrine mutual restrictions on the deployment of new weapons. On January 7, the U.S. State Department described as problematic the implementation of Russia's demand for the withdrawal of U.S. nuclear weapons from NATO countries in Europe. The U.S. also stressed that NATO will continue to have nuclear weapons as long as such weapons exist. Earlier, on January 3, Russia, China, the United States, France and Britain issued a joint statement reiterating that nuclear weapons are not aimed at each other or at any other state, and pledged to prevent unintended or unauthorized use of nuclear arsenals. According to Konstantin Kosachev, Deputy Speaker of the Council of Federation, the Nuclear Five are demonstrating to the world their responsibility for security in the field of nuclear arms control. He called the document very timely and substantial. In late November 2021, Republican congressmen urged Biden in the new nuclear posture review to consider the challenges of Russia and China in developing the document. The letter emphasizes the geopolitical shift that has occurred now since the end of the Cold War, so the current nuclear posture review could be one of the most important in the nation's history.